Well, it is good to be with you. That is a customary greeting, I know that. In fact, I've never heard anybody stand up and say, there's 25 or 30 places I'd rather be this morning talking to you, but bummer, I'm stuck with you. Now, honestly, it may sound customary, but you need to know we are delighted to be with you. We are in a second of a four-part series on close, godly friendships. For what it's worth, this one being the second one, our next one will be the third one, and the third one will be one on dating and romance and friendship. Why? Well, a couple reasons. One is there are some unique things about friendships on college campuses. And the second one is it will be the Tuesday before February 14th, which is historically known as National Singles Awareness Day. That's where the culture turns and looks at you and said, "What? You have no one? What is wrong with you?" And so we will pick that up and do some things on that. Our fourth one in the series is probably as essential as any of them. It's the one on conflict, subtitled, "When the Other Person is an Idiot." And so we will pick the fourth one up. If you missed last week, what did we say? Well, we said it's pretty easy in this culture, in this Western culture and in this Western Christian culture, it's pretty easy to learn how to stand in front of people and lead hundreds, if not thousands. It's pretty easy to stand and say, "This is where I think God wants to take us." You're going to learn to stand beside people, and you're going to serve. That's pretty easy to learn. I mean, you got to worship and all those things, but that's not that hard, and you'll do that. But how well you do those two will depend upon your devotion to God and who sits in these chairs. How well and how long. And we're a culture that's not very good at friendships. Last week we were, Zeb, my cell phone and my keys. Why did that play out that way? By the way, it wasn't my cell phone. That was my grandkids' game of Pass the Pigs. Anybody see what Zeb did? He instinctively knew you let one thing drop, the keys dropped. He instinctively went for what I told him was a cell phone. Absolutely. And unless you and I deepen in this culture and decide in this fast, activity-based, shallow culture, everything that's thrown at us, there are things I'm going to let drop, but the one thing I don't let drop is godly friendships, and that's a rewiring of everything from the deepest inside of you. That's actually what we covered last week. So where do we go this week? This week it goes like this. So how? How do you get friendships? The irony is you don't get friendships by starting out looking for friendships. There are two starter concepts that you have to have in the back of your mind. These both come from C.S. Lewis. C.S. Lewis said, if you want to have deep, godly friends, here's how it happens. First of all, he says, friendship starts by living your life for the reasons and purpose God put within you. You set your eyes on the horizon, on the journey God has called you to. You set your feet on the path that God has called you to. And friends are discovered as a gracious gift beside you. C.S. Lewis said, lovers may go look for each other and try to find each other and turn their face toward each other. But he said that's not how friendships are formed. Friendships are formed when you are shoulder to shoulder and you're both looking ahead and both seeing similar type things, and you turn. And Lewis says an opening of many friendships begins, what? You too? You see the same thing I see? Friendships are not found by making them your primary focus. God called you to wholeness in Him, and He called you to a journey. Don't hang around at the head of the path until you found your friendships. You'll never find them. But that common thing you see changes everything. That's why an old woman sitting on the front porch of her house and a young woman who's a neighbor, they can sit side by side, and they both see a set of eyes where people in this neighborhood ought to be treated with dignity. And that old woman and that young woman, because they see the same thing, can become the best of friends. That's why two young men praying together can find God set their bones on fire about the same kind of thing. That's why two women jogging, at first they just jog together, but then they begin to figure out the Holy Spirit has turned their eyes. There's a shared thing. The David and Jonathans of the world don't come because we just go look for a friend somewhere. Lewis was blunt, in fact, borderline harsh. But you need to hear this. Lewis said that's why those pathetic people who only want friends can never make any. Those going nowhere can never have fellow travelers. A friendship must be about something.
So his point is you can't cause a friendship to happen. You can't create it. I can't make a grocery list of attributes that I want in a friendship and then go search the shelves for that friendship. It just doesn't happen that way. I can't manipulate it into being like the little second grade girl on the playground who comes up to the other little second grade girls and says, will you be my friend? And it was sweet back then. It's a little awkward right now, people, to try to get your friendships that way, but you just can't do it that way. Jesus says we're on a narrow road. And as you progress on that narrow road, there's not going to be, he said, the vast majority of people on that road, but thank goodness, as we travel that road, we're likely to find the godly friendships that we need. The second starter concept that he was thinking about is, why not pray that God is involved in finding those friends for us? Don't you pray about the things that are most important to you? And shouldn't friendships be one of those things you pray about? I don't know of many other blessings in life that have been greater to me than friendships. But this is what is so surprising to me. I didn't realize when I gathered those friendships, I didn't realize what was going to happen. Through those friendships, I was going to get a better me. That's the most wonderful thing about friendship. God uses those, and so he is going to be involved in orchestrating them if you ask him to. He does use those to mold us and to transform us into his image. That's part of his completing the process of perfecting us. So, yes, you look them for those friendships as you travel that road, but you also ask for God's hand to be involved in it.
So if God begins to do two things, begin to take you down a journey of how your life is to be spent, and he begins to put people around you shoulder to shoulder. They won't be clones. I want to make that very clear. They won't often even look like people you thought would ever be the friends. There's a bond that the Holy Spirit creates that the externals can never create. But if the two things we mentioned are there, there's still a foundation you have to build on. There's a series of great sermons that started out by Alistair Beggs. It's a name many of you would not necessarily know. But Alistair started preaching a series of sermons on friendships back in the 1980s. There's an up-and-coming guy who preaches in New York, some guy named Timothy Keller. He picked up Alistair Beggs' sermons, and he enhanced it, and he improved it. And Tim Keller, has a sermon on friendship that we want to send you to. Not at the moment. I will throw something at you. Later, I want you to go to Tim Keller on friendship. We're going to lightly borrow Alistair Beggs, and they use the same outline. Both of them do. We're going to lightly borrow that from a portion of this. But honestly, the sermon is so good, you do need to go to Tim Keller's sermon on friendship. But let me just take their quick outline as we build a little portion of this sermon. In the book of Proverbs, there are 4 things that you have to do to build friendships. These 4 things are just there. The things you have to do to forge a good friendship out of the people that God gives you. The first one would be constancy. Now, that's not a word you use often, but because they want to alliterate, they use C. It means presence and investment. It means more than loyalty. It is a sense of being constant in somebody's life. You don't get a David and a Jonathan by casual investment. You don't get a David and a Jonathan by drive-by kindness. In Proverbs 17:17, a friend loves at all times. And that means all kinds of times. It means in the times of joy, a friend loves, in a time of sadness, a friend loves, in a time of discouragement, in a time of work, in a time of play. It has to do with times, kinds of times. I want to remind you, it doesn't mean that friends will always be together. Do not think that's what it means. In fact, the book of Proverbs will say it in other places. It'll remind you in Proverbs 25, don't put your foot too often in your neighbor's house, lest he get his fill of you and begin to hate you. No. God made you as individuals, and anybody who begins to take away the individuality of somebody else, and somebody who's afraid of solitude, you'll never be a good friend. But there's a constancy that has to go. It has to do with the idea of making good friendship a priority. Julie and I will tell you right now, we've loved our years. We left here with a BTH in 1977. God was so good to us through the years. Our lives were sustained by the Cecils and the Phyllises. Our lives were sustained by the Rick and the Cheryls. Our lives were sustained by the Jays. I could go through the list. But if we were to rewind the clock, you ask us what we would do again, many things, we would do the same. The one thing we would go back is make a higher priority of carving out where Friday night or whether it was Sunday night, these are the handful of people we're not turning loose of.
Let me correct him. He left with the BTH. I left with the MRS, but yeah. It's just as valuable, believe me. I want to get a little transparent with this one because it has spoken to me so much of late, this constancy, this being present, this availability, this investment. I don't think I've ever had much trouble making friends. I'm kind of an extrovert. People think I'm a partier. I really think, I hope I'm a little deeper than that, but I do like people. I really do. And I love to hear your stories. One of my favorite things is for you guys just to make an appointment, just come in and let me hear your story. So I think I had one of those faces that it's not so beautiful that people are put off by you or threatened. I think my face is comfortable. And I was always one of those, wherever I went to go speak, someone always came up to me and said, Julie, you look just like so-and-so back home. And this is what always scared me, because sometimes they would say, I have a picture, would you like to see? And I'll just leave it at that. But friendships were never that hard. I wasn't so smart that people were intimidated by me. I'm comfortable. And so I think through the years, I've had a covey full of friends. I really do. But I tell you, there's only a few that have stuck by me. And here's the reason why we're still friends, is because they made the investment more than I made in them. That's what I've discovered in my later years. Because I am such an extrovert, and because I was a preacher's wife for all those years, and I think these are legitimate things I had to consider. I spread myself very thin among a lot of people. And you're going to have to be very, very careful of that. You're going to have to try really hard to have that set of close friends. And those people that stayed invested in my life through thick and thin, and there's just a few, that means the world to me, because they did it in spite of how little sometimes I invested in them. I want to become the person that is known for sticking closer than a brother. Abraham Lincoln, they said, had bouts of depression that was just really, really bad. But he had a close friend. We never hear about him. His name was Joshua Speed. And there came a time in Abraham Lincoln's life that Joshua has said that he was absolutely suicidal. He said, in fact, I had to come in and hide the razors. I had to hide the knives. And I said to Abraham, you know what? If you don't get a hold of yourself, you're going to die. And because Joshua Speed stood by Abraham Lincoln thought to himself in the middle of all that, and he said, I had an irrepressible desire to do something with my life that would matter. Think what we would not have had if it had not been for Joshua Speed. There really is a friend who sticks closer than a brother.
We don't know how much to park on some of these because there's things we want to get to at the end of this, but constancy is not just needed because other people need us. We need it ourselves. There's a quote that just has captivated me through the years by Catherine Porter. She says, love must be learned and learned again and learned again and learned again. There is no end to it. Hate, it needs no instruction. It just simply waits to be provoked. One of the reasons for constancy is I've got to figure out how to be changed, and being close to you is a part of that sequence. Everybody has little ducklings in your life that you have to look after. You mean solitude, I'm going to say it again. Without solitude, you're worthless to anybody. You run from solitude, you scare me to death. You're going to have to learn how to be a friend of God, and where the rest of the world is not your dependency. You're going to have to learn to love your family and pour your life and do that. You're going to have to learn to take a towel and basin and sit beside the broken and all the things you do. But somewhere these little ducklings, almost every single day, you're going to have to ask this question: is there somehow today I ought to be taking better care of my friend? Is there somewhere and somehow today I ought to be taking better care of my friend? For constancy is the first one. The second one is carefulness. Carefulness. Proverbs 26:18 and 19 says, like a madman who throws firebrands, arrows, and death is the man who deceives his neighbor and says, I was only joking. You need to know that's emotional insensitivity. Too immature to know that your jokes hurt people like that. Too immature to know what they need. Emotional disconnectedness is a real danger. And truth is, we have grown up emotionally disconnected from people. We really don't know. And so the next step, this carefulness, ultimately turns, everybody's got to be a listener. You'll never be a very good friend till you're a listener and a student. Don't be a bull in a china closet. Stop speaking so quickly. All of us, Julie and I, we hope to grow up someday. This sense of being a listener and a learner is really, really critical. Carefulness. It could take a whole of its own. Number three is candor. Candor has to do with the idea of being sincere and honest and impartial. Proverbs 27, verse 6, faithful are the wounds of a friend, and profuse are the kisses of an enemy. Well, think about that for a second. Think about the word picture. Let Proverbs, don't always hear Proverbs, see Proverbs. As he says this, here's the contrast. Friendly wounds, wounding kisses. Part of being a friend means that you're going to tell me what I need to hear. Strangers may have tried to tell me. Casual people may have told me. But they were out in the street. They were out on the sidewalk. They were out in the front yard. But you're in the kitchen of my life. Proverbs 29, verse 5, a man who flatters his neighbor spreads a net for his feet. Please don't let me destroy myself. Love me enough. Somebody's got to speak truth to me, and you got to be close enough that I'll actually turn and hear you well. I'll never forget Rick Bushnell. Rick and I served together over 30 years. So many things we went through in life. I'll never forget, we were off at a camp, and I'd said something about somebody we were working with in common. And Rick looked at the floor. He scuffed his feet. And there was no glee. There was no joy and delight. There was no laughter. There was no gotcha. With his lip trembling, he said, Randy, did you ever realize that when he began to just say, Randy, I didn't know when to say this or how to say it. I'm sorry if I should have said it sooner, but Randy, this is what you do. I will go to heaven's gates, better man. because a man was my friend. Candor is really, really important. But I want to give you a caution. And I give that caution, it would have to be anywhere, but it's a caution that's essential and so needed anywhere young leaders are, and certainly it's needed where old men are. That caution is, candor must be there, but we are at the stage of life, old men and young leaders, we're at the stage of life that we're too quick and too rash to want to go fix someone. One of the most dangerous places I know is a dorm, because everybody's running with screwdrivers and wrenches going to fix somebody else. Everybody I know has got a toolbox going, I've been waiting to have this conversation so I can unload on all the things that you really need fixed on. You have no right to fix somebody else's life until listening and waiting and waiting and praying and delighting in them as they are. Bonhoeffer, I told you last week, Bonhoeffer, I've read Life Together a couple of times, but listening to it just blew me out of the water the other day. Bonhoeffer basically raises this deal that he said there's a ministry of listening. He said we're too quick. He was speaking to his seminary type students. He said, you're way too quick to speak. He said, do you not believe the Holy Spirit can fix things in people? Must you do the work? Do you not believe that they're made in God's image and God's glory? Must you make them in your own? Can I read just a portion of what Bonhoeffer wrote? He wrote about the discipline of the tongue. Where this discipline of the tongue is practiced right from the beginning, each individual will make a matchless discovery. He'll be able to cease from constantly scrutinizing the other person, judging him, condemning him, putting him in his particular place where he can gain ascendancy over him, and thus doing violence to him as a person. Now he can allow the brother to exist as a completely free person as God made him to be. His view expands, and to his amazement for the first time he sees the richness of God's creative glory in this brother. God did not make this person as I would made him. He did not give him to me as a brother for me to dominate and control, but in order that I might find above him the Creator. Now the other person, in the freedom with which he was created, becomes the occasion of joy, whereas before he was only a nuisance and an affliction. I would say to all of us, there is a place for candor, but it is after delight. The fourth one is counsel. In Proverbs 27, verse 9, oil and perfume make a heart glad, and the sweetness of a friend comes from his earnest counsel. The word counsel in that word is not advice. Advice you can get from an encyclopedia. The word has to do with secrets and deep things. It has to do with transparency. You want to know what the sweetness of life is? When some friends can open up their chest and talk about deep things. That sermon, that's a quick summary of what you're going to hear a little bit from Alistair and from Tim. We want to pick up and kind of go a little bit of something else you're going to spot in Proverbs.
Those are healthy things you just have to have. But I don't think it would be right if we didn't just warn you of some things that can really kill friendships. And we're just even looking at the book of Proverbs, and we're just going to get time to just touch a couple of those. But I can't tell you. In fact, I think it would be an awesome study for you in your devotional time to just go through the book of Proverbs and see what it has to say about friendships. Proverbs is going to talk to you about, these are the things that can really kill a friendship. Anger. Don't be associated with an angry man. Proverbs just comes out and says it pretty strongly. Greed. Laziness. Violence. As far as close friendships, you don't have anything to do with them. But the two things I really want to talk to you about that I just think are traps, particularly for you, living in a campus like this, in a setting that's small enough in attendance that you have the privilege of living in community. But these are the things you're going to have to watch out for. Here's the first one. gossip. The scripture talks so much about the tongue. Let me just pick up with Proverbs in chapter 11 and listen to this, verses 12 and 13. Whoever belittles his neighbor lacks sense, but a man of understanding remains silent. Whoever goes about slandering reveals secrets, but he who is trustworthy in spirit keeps a thing covered. Look at Proverbs chapter 20. And this is verse 19. Whoever goes about slandering reveals secrets. Therefore, do not associate with a simple babbler. You all have, I just think this is such an important topic. And I just was thinking, how is the best way that I can get this across? You've seen me as an acrobat, I know. And I don't know that would be that useful right now. You've seen me kind of as a redneck theologian. And I don't want to use that either. So I just want to be your mom here for a minute. Will you let me be that? And I just want to talk to you as a mom about gossip. Okay? Stop it. Stop it right now. If I ever hear one of you children saying anything derogatory or malicious or nasty, sit up there, Tevin. Listen to me. I'll hit you up the side of the book. And just because you're the professors, you listen too. If I ever hear any of you saying something nasty about any of these children of mine, I'm going to take your tongue and I'm going to stretch it up over the top of your head and I'm going to staple it to the back of your neck. Do you understand me? Have I made myself clear? All right. Mama feels better now. I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding. You know, a little birdie told me there's been some tweets going out that have not been very complimentary of some of the people on this campus. They label people. And they say things that are so hurtful that, let me tell you, you don't get over those. I know that. I can remember things that were said to me when I was a kid in junior high. And they so deeply hurt that they still play in my head. You know, we hear about the young woman who was physically abused and how that recording cannot get, that video just keeps playing over in her head. That's what malicious talk and slander and defamation does to somebody. So please, on this campus, let's don't hear that. I know Randy wanted to add something to that.
No professor has ever been healed of his weaknesses by being the butt of mockery in a conversation. No girl has ever found out she was more beautiful because of the sarcasm and the conversations that occurred with someone who did date her or tried to date her or it didn't work out. Nobody has been more conformed to the image of Christ because you found a cheap trick to bond you with a set of immature people that you can have conversations. No wounded young man who would have given his right arm to have his father's respect. And he's fought through life to have the respect. That man has never become more like Christ when there was giggling and laughter, and that man's dignity was shredded. There's no doubt that of all the things that have to be true, Kevin has to be safe in your mouth. And of all the things that are true, Zeb has to be safe in your mouth, Luke. And Luke has to be safe. And I could walk around the room. People who cannibalize the dignity of other people, and that word cannibalize is actually the right word. They sometimes use that to find their accomplices, but you can never be a friend with somebody who cannibalizes the dignity of other people. They say there's honor among thieves. Well, there is honor among thieves when they're together, but two thieves can never leave each other because they know exactly that if you're a cannibalizer, you will never have good friends. They may laugh and joke you through, they may pick it up and even go, but everybody knows when I walk out of the room, I'm fair game next. Friendships are destroyed by that. This whole idea that we want to bring up with you is the idea that whatever you do on friendships, you will absolutely put a terrorist bomb in every friendship you ever have if you're not someone who decides this. This is the stake in the ground. Every conversation, I may have to talk about people's flaws because they do impact us, but their dignity. This is someone for whom Christ died, and when I finish my conversation, Christ will applaud his nail-scarred hands for that individual. We do not cannibalize those for whom Christ died.
Words really have the power of life and death, people. That's what Proverbs says. I can still remember when we first came to College Heights. I was a 26-year-old kid that probably thought she knew more than she did. And I can remember sitting in a Sunday school class, and after sitting there for a while, I thought maybe I knew more about how that class ought to be taught than what was being done. And evidently, I shared it with a few people because I got a phone call from the Sunday school teacher. And he was very kind. And he just wanted to know if I had some helpful suggestions. And I apologized, and I remember getting off the phone and just crying my eyes out because I had been caught. And I was so ashamed. And it was the best thing that ever happened to me. Have I always done it perfectly since? No, I have not. But I don't ever want people leaving my presence feeling like they've been hurt. I want them to know they are safe in my care. There's one other thing on this campus you're going to deal with. It's not just here. You're going to deal with this the rest of your life. You're going to find, and it's just so fun when you find these friendships, and sometimes they just seem to fit like a glove. I mean, you are, as Anne of Green Gables would say, kindred spirits. Kindred spirits, like David and Jonathan. And it's going along so well because you have the same dreams and you have the same longings and the same passions and you want the same things out of life. And that just goes great until he or she gets the very thing that you wanted and you don't get it. And envy sets in. I mean, she got the ring, and you didn't. You're not even dating. He got the internship. That's the one you wanted. It's hard to be happy for him. I mean, that's what I wanted. You're going to deal with this the rest of your life. It is, green shows up all the time, and you'll have to fight against it. Later on in life, it's going to be, she's got 4 babies, and I just want one. I can't even have one. He's got the preaching position I wanted. How in the world did he get that? And how do you stay friends in those kinds of situations when the envy is rearing its ugly head? There's a couple of things you have to remember. Number one is this: if God is blessing that individual, that friend of yours, that does not negate the fact that he is blessing you. Will it be the same plan that God's preparing for him? No, it won't be. Will it be the same timing? No. But can you trust yourself to God? That's really what it comes down to. When envy rears its ugly head, will you trust yourself to God?
Yeah.
Because here's the deal, people. He's got your back. He does. You've got to remember that. And here's the second thing you've got to remember. And this is the odd thing about God. There's going to be some of you that have talents and giftedness and personality, and you think you're the one that's going to go, whoa, you're the one that's going to get all the big things for God. You're the one. Everybody says so. But what if it does not turn out that way? What if it is God's desire that you not be the best in your circle? I love this quote of Peter Maxwell's. He says, life isn't about earning stage time with God. Life isn't about earning stage time with God. So what if his plan is just for you to walk alongside and be the support, to be the Joshua Speed? Why don't you let him decide what he's going to do with you? You're going to have a hard time doing that. I have a hard time doing that, believe me. But here's what I love. Jesus said to love one another. And I think that's what you're always going to have to remember in the middle of this. You're going to lose your friendships over silly things like that if you don't learn to just love one another. But I want you to go further with this. Because how did Jesus love? He loved you first. Can you be the one that will go and love first? Can you be happy for your friend and just be the one who will go and love first? You know why relationships struggle is because they paralyze one another. There's tension over here and tension over here, and one person's waiting for the other one to move, and we don't want to do it. We want them to be the one. They're the one that's fault. They're the one that needs to put out the hand. And no, God just says, you be the one to love first. God has purposes for you, and they're grand. And no one in this room is smaller than the other one. He may have different things for us to do, but God's got your back. Don't envy someone else. Love them first.
Heaven must have stood and applauded when Jonathan walked in. His friend got to be king. Jonathan died behind a corrupted old man. Heaven must have applauded. We have about 2.5 minutes. Let me hit real briefly just this. There are things to build a friendship. There are things in Proverbs that absolutely destroy it. I want to mention in about a minute, jealousy is one of them. Not jealousy for people's success, jealousy for people themselves. That's where you say, you are my friend and you are mine. I want you all to myself. There are people who war against friendship because they are miserly with the people who would be their friends. God is not miserly. God will put your friend, whoever this is, whether it's the one you're dating, the one you're married to, God will put them in a circle of other friends, and you need to delight in that. If you cannot, you are a thief and an embezzler. God will put other people into your friend's life to shape them, to delight them, for them to shape. And if you are miserly, nothing good is happening in that. I sometimes see some dating relationship here that scare the bejeebers out of me. Because what you've done is you've taken someone that God was shaping, shaping, and they were delighting, and you pulled them aside. A kidnapping occurred, but there's just no ransom. I've taken you. Turn people loose. Love them. Let them love you. I worked in Des Moines in the early 70s planting a church. It allowed me to work in a psychiatric unit for a while. The Syrian doctor read me the riot act one day. He said, "You're hurting that woman." I'm going, "How am I hurting that woman? I'm the first decent friend in her life." And he told me this. It's a line that goes like this: anytime you're someone's sole solution in life, you are their sole problem. I want to say to you, legitimate friendship is never threatened by more friends. Illegitimate is threatened by more. We probably ought to wrap up. You go, "Wow, this is a long sermon this morning, so many things, I don't even know what to do." Maybe you long for a David and Jonathan, that's what it causes you to do. Or maybe you get fearful and go, "Man, I don't even know if I know how to do this." Can I just tell you, this longing and fear, it's normal, it's okay. And here's the neat thing. Jesus has said in John 15, "I'll be your friend. I will be your friend." No one else in a broken world may know how to do it very well, but you'll always have me. You also need to know that whatever Jesus was, he will teach you. The Holy Spirit will walk with you and teach you. You may have come from the worst background imaginable, and you may turn out, by the work of the Holy Spirit, you are the Jonathan that heaven applauds when it walks in. Make sure you hang on to Christ. Hang on to Christ. I want you to know, as I stand here today, dear Frodo and Sam, you're all over this place. You Frodos and you Sams, you have no idea where the world turns. You have no idea who God will meet you on which corner and bring into your life a cadre of people that will shape everything about the dreams he's put in you. I would say to you, in a darkened world, the one thing that stands as a rebellion, C.S. Lewis. Every good friendship is a potential rebellion against this broken, dark world. Frodo and Sam, go get them. God bless.